Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of That Millwall Podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. I normally introduce Neil and Micky here, who are both with me today, but instead I'll go straight over to our two guests today, our very special guests, to do an end of 2020 review, I suppose we call it, a whole preview of the whole 2020, everything it entailed. Welcome, Kai from Millwall Fan TV. How you doing, Kai?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. And also, Drive Home fame, Millwall TT, Tony Thomas. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thanks very much for inviting me. Drive Home fame, and it's a review, not a preview, just to say.
Right. Okay. So I'll correct myself there. But yeah, and obviously I'm joined by Neil and Micky as always. So yeah, I mean, what we'll do today is I've obviously sent everyone some notes and there's little bits and bobs obviously we'll discuss today. But I thought we'll just start from the beginning and just talk about how we felt 2020 has gone as a whole. We'll go through the months. We've got January to start off with, obviously, a month where, if I remember back to last season, Gary Rowett was coming in a couple of months in charge, a bit of, good energy around the place. I mean, kind of felt like, especially starting January with 3-1 win over Luton, a 3-0 win in the Cup against Newport County. Things were starting to kind of tick along and carry on from December. I mean, Kai, what's your memories of January as a month overall? And what do you think of, back then, your kind of expectations?
I was really pleased with the start of January, obviously, the 3-1 win against Luton. But before that, obviously, we'd beaten Brentford as well. So it was a nice end to 2019 and a really good start to 2020. So it was a really nice start. 4 really good results up until the 18th against Reading, which we drew 2-0. We beat Reading 2-0. Obviously followed 2 defeats, 1 in the Cup, 1 in the league. But it was a good start in January.
I agree. I think when I look back at that, Tony, I think, Rowett's brought in a couple of players in that window. Woods and Bennett arrive. Woods especially, I know he's, flat to the sea, probably you could say the latter part of 2020 for some Millwall fans. But there's a lot of optimism around the place, weren't there?
There was. I disagree with the Woods thing, Ben. You're right. Some people do think that he's disappointing, but I think he's been consistently one of our better players and a player with class. But there was optimism around the club at that stage. Gary Rowett had turned, our woeful form at the start of the season around. We were picking up points, picking up wins, and it looked, because I think we were quite we looked organised. And that's something that we've really looked like under Rowett. It's been testament to him. We look organised, and then our creative players going forward were making good decisions, and that tailed off towards the latter end of the season, and then obviously the latter end of this year as a whole, because our creative players were just making wrong decisions in the final third. At that stage, it looked like we could score goals. Because even when the last game is that month away at Leeds, we looked dangerous when we went forward. Obviously, we looked far and broad at the back, but we looked dangerous every time we was going forward, and that's kind of tailed away. We've become a little bit the defensive mindset's crept in month by month this year, and we've got to the stage now where we're very defensive until we turned it around the last month of the season, but last month of the year.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. Away from home especially has been obviously a huge plus of 2020. And I was doing a little notice obviously beforehand, but I forgot about the Leeds game, obviously being 2-0 up at half time and then chucking it 3-2 defeat. Neil, what do you remember from January as a month, and what kind of stands out as a main kind of talking point from that month?
Main talking point, well, yeah, it started off well, I think, as everybody said. Well, we looked to be flying. All of a sudden we go into an FA Cup tie against a Premier League team. They put out a reserve team, I think, didn't they, at the time? Am I wrong?
I think they made a few changes. It was relatively strong.
Changes. And it kind of went tits up for a few weeks, didn't it? Leeds, obviously, 2-0 up there at half-time. You'd have kind of thought that we'd at least get a point from that. Good team. Threw it away, and I don't know if that affected us, if that had a little knock-on effect for a little while.
No, of course. I look back at that month, obviously, like I said, with a couple of signings, TT's right up the goals. And it was obviously, I think maybe the cup game might have been a distraction, Micky. We're saying obviously that was the loss that but I suppose the turning point was that Leeds game, I feel like, the 3-2 defeat. But was the cup a little bit of a distraction? Did it kind of hamper our form, especially at home? Because I think after that, we didn't win at home for a long while after that.
No, I think you're right. I think, we did start to take a form in it. The things I can remember from January, which seems like a lifetime away, is that we could travel away to football games, we could go home to football games, and we could go to the pub before and after the game. We could even go into a restaurant and have something to eat before or after a game. It seems as if, we're talking years ago when things were very, very normal. But no, I think the Leeds game, we were unfortunate there. We were leading, and obviously we get pipped at the end, and it's always not good to be beaten by them. After there, we started having shit. The Sheffield United, I think, hit us confidence-wise, and then I suppose really coming in after there, COVID starts coming in, then there starts to be everything with COVID in the February side, and then obviously March it really hits. But no, I think there's a few things to go back to January for. I mean, obviously Bradshaw and that, but yeah, I mean, Woods and Bennett arriving was great. But my views on Woods, so we won't go there. I think while he's not in the team, we look like a completely different team, and he looks like a result. So yeah, I
want to give TT a right reply here, because I feel like I'm very on the fence about this whole situation. I think Woods played poorly, people say, but I think the whole team played poorly. So I especially later in the season. So go on, TT, you can have your right reply for that one.
Mickey, you know nothing about football, Mickey. Come on. Woods, for me, has been playing too deep, but that's how we've set up.
Absolutely agree with you.
And he can only play the balls around him if he's got the movement, and he hasn't had that. And I think that we changed formation, and it coincided with the fact that he dropped out of the team. But I honestly believe if you played the 4-4-2 formation with him in it, we're going to look a far better team, because there is no better ball playing midfielder, I think, in the league than Ryan Woods. And I think that I've got into debates on this on Twitter, but creativity wise, if you get him in and around the box, he sees the runs, he sees the movement, and he has the skill to be able to pick people out. So if we just need to have him further forward. It's all well and good people going, well, he isn't getting further forward. Yeah, but that's because he's being told not to get further forward. If he's allowed a little bit more freedom to be further up the pitch, he has the ability to find our. He done it at the. We'll get onto it, but he done it so well in the Charlton game where we won 1-0 after we resumed, where he found like a little chip ball from the edge of the box, and he found the run in from Wallace, who missed the shot, who missed the chance. He has that ability, and no one else in the team, and I think not many other players in the league have that ability. He's just not been played in. I know he's always been a deeper lying midfielder, but I think given the fact that we need creativity in the final third, he has to play further forward, and that's where I'd play him.
I agree with you.
Yeah, he looks a lot better with Jason Malumbi alongside him.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. That was going to be my talking point when we get on to March and stuff.
If he comes back, if Malumbi comes back as is being rumoured in January, I think you might get that Ryan Woods back. I hope we get that Ryan Woods back, to be quite honest.
You also need, like you said, not just Malumbi, but you need legs around it, because if you're expecting one of your central midfielders, especially if you're only playing a two, to get further forward, then one of them is going to have to go up and down the pitch a lot more. So they're going to have to. That's why even Malumbi or Billy Mitchell, who is coming back from injury, has that ability to be able to box to box, clear it up, and allow Woods to stay a little bit further forward, so he's not burning himself out. I just think he will be a revelation if we play him further forward. I strongly believe that.
I totally agree with you. I think the problem is that he's tucked up too deep, and he doesn't, he can't have his creativity, and he fucking hates running back. He wants to be able to stay out there and get ready to get the ball and run and do something with it. I fully agree with you. But in the position where he's playing, in the formation what Gary's playing him with, you might as well not have him on the field, because he's like a petulant teenager. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't want to run back. He doesn't want to do this, do that. He just wants to be able to do something with the ball. And the position where he is, he ain't doing it. And while he's there doing the position what he doesn't want to be in, he's pointless to the club at the moment. In that position, playing him there, he's fucking pointless to us. We might as well put someone else in there who can do the job.
Well, I think to go on to that, with the fact that this is going to go out throughout the whole month, and we're going to explain it to a little bit more detail. But the fact is, we're playing a back five. So he's receiving the ball with 5 players. He's receiving it on the edge of the box nearly, but 5 players deeper than him. So he's got only one or two balls, and it's only a ball to distance. And because our centre backs are not that comfortable at receiving the ball, even though they've got slightly better, he's left with very few options, and he is too deep. So when you play that 5 or the 3-4-2-1 formation that you want, you need your midfielders to push up a little bit more. Otherwise, everyone's back, and that's what we've ended up with. And we look so defensive because we've got 7 defensive players that are in the line of our box, and we just can't get out of it.
I think you're spot on there. I think that's, for me, what the real issue was there. I mean, the form tapered. We was raving about Woods. We'll get on to Preston away, later in September. But, he's chipping a ball over a player in his own box. People are loving it. Then he sprays it out wide, and it's like, what a player. But then he's making mistakes at home away to Blackburn. That's costing us a loss there. So I get the argument for it, and I get the argument against it. I'm more kind of thinking the team was poor. It's not just Woods' fault for that when we was on our 10 minutes run. But we'll get on to that. I think I'll give a quick shout out to 2 departures in that January window before I move on to February. And that was McCarthy going on loan to Wickham, who we never saw again in the Mill shirt, which was, I guess we'll give him a little talking point because, he didn't play any significance really that season. But I think it was a shame really we never got to see him kind of get an opportunity, Kai. I mean, Romeo held down the right back position, and rightly so, probably. Romeo's, quite consistent in that position, but McCarthy never really got a look in, did he?
No, he didn't. He did get a game against Newport, actually, when we won 3-0, but he got taken off for James Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I thought with only James Brown, he played 10 minutes at the end, but I thought James Brown looked probably a better player than Jason McCarthy did, and he played 80 minutes. So he made far too many mistakes that day, but then again, it could be match fitness.
I do remember that game, actually. You're right. I think I do remember him coming off as well late in the game, and I kind of felt like the right was on the rule at that point. And yeah, it was a shame, Tony, wasn't it? I mean, he's obviously a good right back. You can see that, and he's got a bit of pedigree. I think he was at Southampton as a young kid, then he went to Barnsley, but maybe just for us wasn't going to work out.
He didn't gel straight away. He didn't gel with the dressing room. He didn't gel with the ethos of the club. And yeah, he didn't really get an opportunity in the team, but he was always going to be behind Romeo and never really, whenever he was given a chance, never really done it. And I know you've only got very small captions where you can see what he did, but he never really looked to me championship level. He's never really played at this level. And I think that, I agreed with the purchase at the time. I thought that he had, dead ball. He looked like the ability to be able to put in, but his all-round game didn't really have the pace that you need at a championship to play at wing-back. And so I think it was right that we let him go back to Wickham, and that's. I don't think he won't play in the championship for long. I don't think.
I think his characters. I don't know. I know we say a lot about a Mill type player, but I think he wasn't really the kind of perfect fit for the squad as well. And as we said there, and I think he got told to stay away from training, for example, when he came back in the summer months. So unfortunate. And one other departure was Tom Elliott going to Salford. Now I wanted to mention Tom Elliott because I was watching a highlights video today of Sheffield United away a couple of years ago, where Tom Elliott's winning every single header in the opposition box, but they're not going in. They're not hitting the target. I was thinking, so much promise when he first arrived. Because I thought, cool, he's a 4-4-2, Neil Harris playing it. Just, it was terrible, weren't he? I mean, what do you remember of Tom Elliott, Kai? And what do you want to say of his Mill career?
I remember being, as you said, optimistic when he first joined, and his first couple of games, he looked quite good, but he never really, he never properly showed his probably full potential. But going back to Salford, I don't think he's done much there since he's gone there.
I don't think he even gets a game, to be honest.
That's what I was about to say. I don't think he even gets a game. So it just shows, he's not championship quality, and yeah, not at all.
I think I remember him scoring against us when O'Brien scored a volley at Wimbledon, and I think Tom Elliott got the equaliser in that game. I remember thinking he looks a handful, and he was a handful that day. But I think League One, League Two is probably a bit more realistic to his level, I suppose. Neil, what do you reckon?
He's completely out of his depth, to be honest. He came from AFC, no history, and he should have stayed there, to be quite honest. Yeah, complete and utter waste of time signing. It was indicative.
Anchor. I liked him.
I felt sorry for him when his first season.
Can I finish, Mickey, before you start abusing it?
A lot of calls at the time were to give him a chance over Morrison, because Morrison was aging and we was a struggling side. And then he gets his opportunity in that struggling season afterwards, and you're thinking, yeah, let's get him out, and hopefully someone else comes in.
Needed more faith.
Budget signing, yeah. It was a desperation signing, and to be quite honest, like a lot of Neil Harris's signings were at times, yeah. He rolled the dice on him when really you want to be looking up, not down for your players. Yeah. Well, it was never going to work out. Never going. Yeah. What's he
I,
done?
rem- I remember. I remember in one game he'd done a Cruyff turn on the halfway line. I started running towards goal and we erupted like he'd scored. That pretty much summed up his all-around game. He just was never cut out to play at the level that we play at. Just Zach, my boy was put it better. He was so happy to see him go. He thought he was absolutely useless, and he doesn't normally get many things wrong, Zach. So
that was his best career move ever.
Yeah.
You had so much wish that Elliot would come on form. I mean, when I say I liked, I thought he was all right. You just had that something where you were wishing that he had a few good little flick-ons and a little, you could see why we wanted to buy him because of his size and his presence and all that. But some days he just turned up as if he might as well been wearing a tutu on the fucking field because he just wasn't that big butch player what he was in realistic. And some days he just didn't use his power to his advantage. But if he did, he could have been a great player for us because he could have really fitted into the Millwall way. But I just think that, was he really keen on being a football player or was he just interested in taking the money?
The one thing that he done really well was the equaliser at Leeds.
Leeds away, you beat me to
Leeds
it.
away.
Yeah.
The equaliser, make it 3-3,
Yeah.
and then good celebration. We were, and then obviously we go on and Jed Wally scores the winner. That's that one moment he should have retired from football at that stage because he's never going to get retired.
You literally in my mind there. I feel a bit worried that it's totally a mind reader as well. But yeah, I thought honestly, I agree. That was the one moment where I think it was against his boyhood club as well, and you're thinking it was superb for him. I think we'll move forward though to February, and I think we'll talk about obviously the games that we had there. We had 7 games, only 1 win away at Preston. A happy hunting ground for us, it seems, in recent years. I kind of read it as early signs of form dipping at home. I remember in the close season before we had Derby, the close season, the bit where we had the break from COVID, people saying the home form's not been too great. We're struggling at home, and it was early signs of that happening there. I think we didn't win a game 4 at home, but I feel like there were 4 difficult fixtures at the time. You got West Brom, Fulham, Birmingham, Bristol City, tough games. And we only lost one of them, which was to eventual promotion candidates, West Brom, Kai. So what do you reckon about that?
I'm looking back and I remember them. I think we probably should have won. We should have beat Fulham, Birmingham, and Bristol City. I remember there was, I think Jeb missed a penalty against Fulham that if he scores, we probably win the game. Bristol City, I remember we should have had a penalty in the last minute or something. That was the last ever game that I went to since COVID. So, and then Birmingham, I remember we bullied them all game and we probably should have won that one. So it's fine margins again, like it has been this year. Too many draws, but we're not quite able to turn them into wins, and that's where we were let down last year and where we're not making the playoffs. And this year, that's where we're being let down. That's where we're in the bottom half.
Early signs of lack of firepower as well, Tony, isn't it? I suppose if you look at it, I think only 3 goals all month.
The perfect way of putting it, the month was summed up by the 91st minute of the first game of the month, where Jay Body's put through at Hillsborough. He's running on the cot and he finds the back row of the cot. A game where we've created chances. Like Kai said, we created so many chances in that month and we just did not take them. Funny enough, the first and only game in March, we turned that around. But I think that's Matt Smith. We started playing to Matt Smith's strengths and he bullied that game. He didn't play enough in February. It's funny that the chances were falling to Bradshaw, who was kind of started his out of form, falling to Jay Bod, who isn't great quality, certainly not in terms of finishing. It's not his strength. And that whole month was summed up by not doing enough in the final third. I still felt we were creating chances, but just not taking them. And that's kind of followed on for the rest of the year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember the Sheffield Wednesday game. I remember being held an escort 20 minutes late into Hillsborough, always good away there. And it wasn't a great game. I remember it being just kind of, we had a couple of chances. And then that chance right at the end, I could just remember look at Bodvarsson thinking, it wasn't an amazing opportunity, but he was through on goal. And you expect him to at least have an opportunity to get on target. And I can remember at the time thinking, that's him done for us. I felt like, I know that sounds really silly to say, but the reaction from us in the stand at that time, I just thought, early signs of him not being, not going to make it, so to speak, after obviously half season so far with us at that time. I mean, Neil, what's your memories of February? I mean, the one win came at Preston. Sean Hutchinson, I think, was a header, wasn't it? What do you remember from February?
Blimey, yeah, it was that long ago, not very much, apart from the fact we turned into the country's draw specialist. I think, like everybody else has said, lack of finishing summed it up, really, didn't it? We couldn't finish a Toby Carvery, could we? Well, we were in every game. I don't think anybody really outplayed us, maybe apart from West Brom, even though I'm struggling to remember that game.
That was a poor Sunday Sky game where the weather was terrible that day. Yeah, I didn't even get to it because I was coming from Eastway and the A13 was all shut off and everything. I couldn't even get to the game that day. So yeah, I just remember watching on Sky thinking this is terrible. Like, it weren't a great day.
Our month, really, didn't it? It's an instantly forgettable month to have. I think, as everybody said, well, we've had chances to win every single one of those 4 games, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't take them, and that's just really sums us up.
I think it does quite well. I mean, Micky, got anything to add for February? I think I want to touch on Nottingham Forest in March. That's probably the one highlight of 2020, to be honest, the biggest highlight anyway. But go on, what you got about February before I move on to that?
No, nothing really. I suppose nothing at all. It was quite a not really remembering month, to be fair. No, I've got nothing. But yeah, get your bingo cards ready. Omar's mentioning Nottingham Forest.
What, 299 days since I last saw Millwall play, you mean? Yeah, well, I mean, it hits me hard, especially this time of year, to be honest with you. It's been so long since I've seen him play, but what a away day that was, honestly. It had everything about it. Friday night on Sky, away at Nottingham Forest, always a good kind of place to go to, just a perfect away day. And if anything, I suppose if that's the last time I've seen Millwall play, it's a nice memory to have, because it could easily be thinking about Botharson missing the chance at Sheffield Wednesday and that sticking in the memory. But, I mean, Matt Smith scored a hat-trick, Kai, against Nottingham Forest. I thought at the time, we're going to kick on here if football continues. I really did think that. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I thought exactly the same. It was a brilliant first half display, wasn't it? But do you know what? After the Leeds game and how we threw that away, I was still thinking at half time, I don't think this game's over. Luckily, we parked the bus and we won it. But, with Millwall, we always seem to let the other team back into the game, don't we? But luckily with this one, we didn't. It was a brilliant win.
They played against us a bit like how... Who did we get turned over 3-0 by first? Middlesbrough recently. We played that day 3-0 up, second half, Tony. We just kind of saw the game out professionally, didn't we?
From the start of that game, we looked completely in control. And there's very few times do you say that as a Millwall fan. But the intensity of the first half was matched by the defensive intensity, because what seems to happen is teams, when they take a lead, they get the defensive mindset, so they sit back. But you need to keep the same intensity. So they're closing down. The pressure on the ball still needs to be the same, whether you're sitting back or whether you're attacking. And that day, we got it bang on. Forest did have more possession of the ball in our half, but they didn't really create anything. Bart wasn't pulling off save after save, tipping things around the corner. They had 2 or 3 half chances, but nearly everything else was in front of us. Outside the box, and because obviously what we want as a defensive unit, what we love is for teams to be playing the ball into the box, and Cooper and Hutchinson and Pearce and Bart coming to collect it, just absolutely clear that up all day long. And that's what we done in that Forest game. Funny enough, me and Kai were on a Forest podcast recently, and I just remember the game because it's one of the only times in my life where I physically could not celebrate the third goal. I was so wiped out from goals 1 and 2 that my chest was just exploded. I was like cheering, but there's nothing coming out. I was just so excited. I had my daughter Layla with me, and we had, it was just such a great, like you said, if that was going to be the last game I ever got to watch live, then what a flipping game, because we just, it was the best of Millwall, the best of our atmosphere. We've sung fantastically well. We're getting stuff thrown at us from above, Forest fans in the tier above. And it's just a perfect, no one likes us. We're taking this on. And it was brilliant. It's just the passion that day was fantastic.
I agree, mate. It was unbelievable. I think you always, especially when you go to the boys, you get the shout around 5-10 minutes before the half's over. Who's going to get the beers in? I was like, you're stupid if you're going to miss the rest of this half. Like, just everything we was touching seems to turn into something, a goal at the time. And Smith getting a hat-trick as well. I mean, cool. That was, all 3 goals. Malumbi celebration. Like, I just felt the day as a whole was just perfect. I mean, Neil, we've had that huge high, 9 games to go. A lot of the teams were in the bottom half of the table. I don't think there were many playoff contenders for the rest of the season. could we have kicked on? I think we could have.
Well, funnily enough, I'd actually booked a ticket to see the Derby game, which I think was the week after, wasn't it? To welcome Mr. Rooney to South East London. And sorry, who does too? I think Mickey just put in the chat.
Yes, I went Hooters. I went Hooters pre-match. Loved every second of it. That's part of the experience of Nottingham Forest away. Then you go beer keller in the evening. You're singing your heart out on the beer tables till 3 a.m. Get kicked out. McDonald's is open 24 hours as well. That's just a carbon copy, rinse and repeat of Nottingham away. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but to go back to your point, yeah, no, I think that it was looking good, wasn't it? We were on a high. Then, considering that we'd only we'd lost what, 2 of however many by then, hadn't we? And Smith's hat trick was probably the high point of the year, to be honest. There aren't many better, are there? And Rooney was going to come down, so everybody was talking. I think everybody was confident. And then this shitstorm happened, didn't it? And they cancelled everything, and it's just not been the same again. Obviously, 299 days since you last saw Millwall. I think it will be up to about 350, 360 days by the time we're finished.
Unthinkable. I really do think that. It's like, it's hard to explain it. Everyone here is all like-minded as myself. Millwall is part of us. You know what I mean? And to explain it to people that, don't understand our football club and don't understand just following a football team in general, like losing having access to goals for so long. I know, Tony, I'll come to you on this one. I know we don't really discuss beforehand, but I know you're quite passionate about the same, similar to me, and you've spoken about it on Twitter. It's a huge miss, isn't it? Like just not having that Saturday to go to the football with your family, with your friends, all around it as well, just a whole day.
It's irreplaceable. There is nothing that has the same in my life. Plenty of people have accused me of being. I've never taken drugs. I'm a bit boring. I drink plenty, but I've never taken drugs because I don't need it. Football, Millwall, the emotion and feeling that you have when you're there, and it's because you go through the complete spectrum of it. Like you said, the times where whether you're with friends, family, you're experiencing it all together, and it can't be it cannot be replicated. And I just love I know that every fan of their own club feels like their fans are different and they're special, but because we have a bond and a unity at the Den, it's because we've got that no one likes us attitude. When we do so, when we win 3-0 at Forest, no one wants us to win 3-0 at Forest. Everyone's like, "Oh, bloody hell, they've gone," and it just makes it so much better. And just being able to, for me, shouting at the ref, giving him my 2 pennies worth, or getting in the ear of the opponent's right back who's down by the side of me and making a difference. And Zach will tell you, I still try and do it when I'm sitting on the sitting down watching it on iFollow, which you want to throw something through the TV because it's so frustrating where it's glitching. And what it makes you appreciate is what going to football matches really gives you. And I feel, and that's why, and I've spoke to Kai about this actually when we were doing something recently. That is why when fans from all around the world support Millwall, and they love this content. They love it because we still get to go, we still get to experience it, and that's them when they listen to our passion and what they still feel like they get to go by listening to us. And that's, however far away from in the world you go, you still want to be back there on the terraces, in your seats, watching your team, because nothing ever replaces that. Sorry, I can go on all day. So
I'm the same, mate. I do a little blogging, and I wrote something today that I'll probably write in the next couple of days. Just sitting there and just typing and just rambling about it. And I could go on about it for hours as well. And it's like, I feel like people that don't follow football don't understand it, but it's just the whole day of it. And like, I ain't seen people for 300 days now that, they're my friends, but they're my Millwall friends. You know what I mean? They're people that you see on a Saturday on the terraces, you say hello to. They're people you used to bump into when you're in the pub and you have a drink together on an away day or whatever. It's like, there's still people that, that I count as friends. It's just that obviously I've not seen them for that long now. And it's more than just the football itself. And that's the underlying tone, isn't it, Kai? It's more than just being there to cheer Millwall on. It's, there's more to it.
Definitely. That's it's something that I won't take for granted ever again, just turning up. Our tradition with we go, all my cousins come, and then my uncle, my dad, and everyone goes, and we go into block 40 first, watch the players, shoot a goal, and then go up to block 12. But it's I've missed it so much. I mean, at school I get told off for talking about Millwall too much and football in general, really. But I miss it so much, and just when it comes back, it'll be absolutely brilliant, and I'll never take it for granted ever again.
I have to agree with you, mate. I mean, let's fast forward it a little bit. We're having a few months of Mill doing throwbacks. West Ham, Mill's on TV, 4-1 Mother's Day Massacre. They're putting it out live to everyone to watch. All the season reviews are going on YouTube. People are just, we had a little podcast highlight of getting. We had Gary Alexander, Alan Dunn on the show, Paul Robinson and Mike Calvin doing the family book. We're all throwing it back. Eventually, mid-June, we get the football back. Players are back training, and we then welcome Derby County to the Den. We lose 3-2. You was meant to go to that game. What's your memories of that one?
We played like a bunch of cunts, didn't we? We let a fucking albino child fucking score hat-trick against us. That's what I fucking remember. We were fucking absolutely fucking shocking, weren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, welcome back Millwall style, really, wasn't it? Yeah, what can be said? We played like an absolute fucking drain.
Don't hold back, Neil, will you?
No, I won't do, Nick. I'll take me.
There it is, fella.
From you, mate, yeah? Yeah, but it was just a Millwall way. You were Kai and Tony were saying about the emotions, and that is the emotion of following Millwall, isn't it? I think everybody was so ramped up, so excited that Millwall was back, even though you couldn't be there. You had to watch it on iFollow and things like that. And we played like an absolute bunch of cunts.
I agree with you there. I think we did. And I think a lot of that was potentially around the fact that I don't think players were fit. I don't think, with everything going on, that they weren't fit and everything else, which I'm glad that obviously we'll be coming to Charlton in a minute. I think that game just gave the players that we've got to win this. If you don't, then you're in trouble. Derby, I think Rooney just controlled everything there. He was just sitting off, getting balls, flicking them onto players, and we were just being taught a football. We were being taught, and it was like an exhibition game or a Rooney testimonial. Do you know what I mean? He was just getting that ball, flicking it to players, and they were fucking all over us. We were being embarrassed by it.
Don't forget Matt Smith nutmegs Rooney that day, though. So let's not forget it. And what people forget from that day is we actually went 1-0 up. And I remember watching it for, getting it all set up, and I followed the foreign at the time feeling to it. And then we go 1-0 up. I think Leonard played behind Smith that day. We played 4-4-1-1. I was thinking, I think Bennett couldn't play obviously against his parent club. So we couldn't play the same team as we did against Forest. But I felt like it was there for us to, the onus was on the players, 3-0 against Nottingham Forest. We've got a favourable run of fixtures between now and the end of the season. I feel like the gauntlet was laid down to them, Tone, a bit, and they let us down a bit, I think. I'm going to say the players let us down, I feel like.
They did. And the reason why I feel like I touched on earlier was that there was no intensity. We just dropped back, sat back. I think it's one of those games where we took the lead too early, and that gave us the wrong mindset, and we allowed, because obviously Lewis Sibley had a very good game. Some of the goals that he scored were excellent, but there's no way with fans in that stadium he would have been allowed to get the time on the ball that he got, because we just wouldn't have tolerated it. We would have been shouting and screaming. We'd have been telling them, get on him, like ruin him, trying to make the kid cry. We just, it was a perfect kind of thunderstorm of crap that was going to come without having fans there. And obviously our home form was struggling before then, but it was only going to get worse without us there. And it was a perfect epitome of what was going to happen afterwards, because, like Mickey said, Rooney just controlling the ball, no one crunching him, no one and no one putting him under pressure. And that's not what we are like at home. And because we don't have the players of the skill set that a lot of players have in the Championship that we come up against. So we make up for that with the intensity work rate around it. And we just did not have that in that game. And we lost by 1 goal, but it weren't a 1 goal defeat. It felt like we'd lost 5, like we did about 4 or 5 years ago. We lost 5-0 to them at home, or 5-1 at home. It felt like that. And it was a terrible way to come back into football.
Also, Sorry, Omer. Also, the worst bit was with that game is that we've been looking forward to it from June the year before when the fixtures come out. June the 20th or whatever it was the year before, wasn't it? 2019
Rooney
or whatever. We were looking forward to that game. Rooney's coming down. We're going to fucking ruin him. All across Twitter, all across social media, forums, everyone was looking forward to it. And then this bastard COVID kicks in and then stops us from being able to abuse Shrek. And unfortunately, he got, like Tony said, he got control of that ball with no one there. Do I think he would have behaved like that? Do I think we would have got the win if we were in that ground? 100%. I think we would have won that game because we would have absolutely unsettled Rooney, regardless of his experience and his experience of playing in various teams and various crowds. I think we would have unsettled him that game if we were there.
Yeah, that would have been a full house, and people would have been hanging off the sides like always happens at a Millwall full house. The atmosphere would have been up. Yeah, Rooney would have been taking dog's abuse for his indiscretions in brothels with grandmas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it would have been a proper evil Millwall atmosphere. And there's no way that child would have got one shot on goal.
No, what?
Yeah, but let alone score three.
I reckon that if we were being in that ground, and I put it now, and I reckon it would have been. I reckon someone would have had a banner saying my nan says hi, Rooney.
Yeah.
It would have been carnage, and I think that's what kind of the sour feeling throughout was like. If there was fans there, I really did feel like. I mean, Mickey, when we started to amp this podcast up a little bit in June time. Now, I won't encourage people to go and listen to them predictions from me and Mickey, but I always whenever something's got positives happening, a glimmer of it, I go to the sky of Millwall, and I remember it, and I thought 9 games, and I remember, Mickey, you even asked me the questions: are we going to win or draw? Win or draw? I think we ended up with like 7 wins and 2 draws. We was going to go undefeated, and we was going to be in the playoffs. And I was like, this is it. It's going to happen. And I really did feel that. And even so, the rest of the month, a 0-0 draw away at Barnsley, 1-1 at home Swansea. I think Bennett scores and gets injured that day, and we're thinking, we're not getting any break here. We're not going to get any opportunities. And Swansea, I think, equalised late on. But that whole month as a whole was just such a letdown, wasn't it, Kai? Like, June was going to be the time we come in and kick on, and Mill's going to get promoted without fans being there. You know what I mean? That's what I felt like.
Yeah, absolutely. I did think, though, that when we're going back to fans, talk about fans, is that not only does it affect our players, but it absolutely, affects the other players, because they're coming to the Den thinking, well, I'm not going to get abused. It's probably the one time I'm going to come to the Den and not get any abuse, not get any, no singing, no atmosphere that Mill will create. And they play with no fear, and you could see it. But the schedule we had in June, it looked pretty. It looked okay, apart from the Swansea game. Swansea game was always going to be tough. But Barnsley, obviously, with our run against Barnsley, we were never sure about that one. But I thought we could maybe change that around. But after the Derby game, I was feeling pretty negative. But we did all right towards the end of the season. And had we have beaten QPR, we could have made it.
That's unbelievable, isn't it? Despite without winning in June,
if you look at that,
no had a chance.
If you look at June, though, 2 massively same incidents that ended in 2 different ways against us. The Barnsley one, Fergie had a free kick outside the box. Virtually no chances created in that Barnsley game. Fergie had a chance, free kick outside the box, hits the underside of the bar, goes down and bounces out. In the game against Swansea, I think we were winning 1-0 at the time.
And Brewster
hits the underside of the bar, hits bar and goes in. And you're like, that's massive. At that stage, if we've picked up 2 wins out of those 2 games, we're on the crest of a wave. Still after the Forest game, we put the Derby to bed to say that was a one-off. All right, we were terrible. We've come again. We've had the best chances in the match. But unfortunately, when you and this is what happens under Gary Rowett. If you don't create many chances, when you don't take them, it's a very nothing game, and you end up feeling really dejected by it. But those two, I think they were massive at the time. Fergie, either one of them incidents don't happen, or both of them happen in our favour rather than against us. And then 6 points from the first 9 the first 9 available, and you're thinking, here we go, we're still here, we can do this. Because the results, we're going to move on to July. The results in July actually they were going quite well. We were winning the close battles, and we were close.
100%.
What I can remember about that Barnsley game is we could have still been playing now, and we wouldn't be fucking scoring, would we?
No, that's true.
It was probably the worst game of football. I saw this year. Because there was just absolutely nothing in that game whatsoever. It was boring. Yeah, well,
should we cheer ourselves up?
Yeah, I'm just about to slice me wrists.
Yeah. Well, let me cheer you up when I say marauding central defender playing left side of a back three in the 6-yard box to tap away and win us a London derby away at Charlton, Jake Cooper. Wow. I mean, what's your memories of that, Kai? I mean, I couldn't believe it at the time. Obviously, I was jumping around the living room screaming. That game itself was a bit of an end-to-end kind of affair. And I really felt like, especially with the poor June we had, they're going to do us here. I really thought like Charlton's going to beat us this year. They're going to stay up as well. And that's going to be the game that helps them kind of have the revival, so to speak.
Yeah, it was one of them ones, wasn't it? Because 2020 had already been awful as it was. I could see them beating us. But that was the only thing that stayed normal in 2020, isn't it? The Millwall beat Charlton. But other than that, there's been nothing normal. So I could definitely see them beating us. And they started really strongly, didn't they? I think their strikers had a couple of good opportunities. And Lee Bowyer said after the game about their strikers, I think his quote was something, it's not good enough. Because Paulie Bomb really should have scored against Bart. And it was that moment that you felt like, okay, we're going to win this. But still, yeah, without fans there, I did think that day they were going to beat us.
We was going to win it, Kai, but of all people, Jake Cooper in the attack, joining in on the left-hand side. What's he doing there?
Well, first of all, I was watching Mahoney, obviously, because Mahoney had the strike. And then, Cooper followed up, and I didn't actually realise that he'd scored until he was celebrating, because I thought he'd gone over the bar. Once I realised, I was going nuts. But I was really pleased with that win. It was a good way to just to sort of get us back on track.
You can also see how much Charlton really didn't want us to lose that, with the fact that 3 of their defenders got yellows on there as well, didn't they? 2 of ours did as well. I think Billy Mitchell got one, didn't he? And Jason got one. But you could see that Charlton just... The thing is with beating Charlton, what makes it even better with beating Charlton is the fan reaction afterwards. And social media just melted because, there was cheat and this and that and everything else. And it was just, they just hate losing. They're just not good enough. They're not really a rival either. I love the fact that, in the entire lifespan, put it into perspective, in the entire lifespan of Omer and Kai, Charlton have never beaten Millwall.
Well, I think it's 95, isn't it? That we lost them, or was it 27 years or 25 years? What's the number?
24 years this year, 25
So I was 1, and it was the snow game, isn't it, where they beat us at the Den, and it was the game where it was snowing and the Red Bull was out. I think, if memory sticks, I remember it. I remember seeing.
We even played them at Upton Park, and they never beat us there either, did they?
Well, do you know what? Yeah, that game is my Millwall moment of the season. Lee Bowyer nearly crying on national TV. What a fucking moment that was, because he couldn't accept that they'd just been turned over by a central defender side-footing a ball into the net from 5-6 yards or whatever it was. Yeah. And he was trying to make every excuse under the sun, wasn't he? And it just wasn't going to wash. Little old Millwall go down to the spotters, and we hammered them. Yeah.
What was the time? Oh yeah, that was it. 95, wasn't it? 95 minutes. Yeah.
And Bowyer nearly breaking down on national TV. What a fucking time to be a Millwall fan.
Get back through our Twitter account from that day and see all the Bowyer videos and everything else, and all the meltdowns.
Superb. Yeah, well, it was superb. And then you've got that Charlton fan channel, yeah? He was almost suicidal, wasn't he?
We dug him right out.
Well, to be fair, that was my last, because obviously the big thing about that Charlton YouTube channel, I think his name's Tyler Rawlinson. Yeah. But obviously, it's, he makes Kai look like he's 25. He's a teenager, scratching his spot, Sackney, as obviously Matt Smith scores the winner at the Den, and he said, well, that's 3 points that are going to keep Millwall in the division. The irony that Jake Cooper scores the goal, because if they'd have drawn that game, they would have stayed up.
There you go.
And so
You've got to play his clip. You've got to play that clip in, Omar, because that is just that is the best bit. But it's so fucking funny though, because we've abused him.
He's scratching his spots and he's crying, and it's just typical. Because to be honest, Charlton are not rivals. They never have been rivals of Millwall. They never will be rivals of Millwall. However, every game now, I really don't want us to lose that game because you don't want the run to it. Because to be fair, it means so much more to them than it does to us. But the more it goes on, the comedic value of him scratching his spots and watching as we once again, the singing after that Matt Smith goal, "You'll never beat the Millwall," and to be able to celebrate the Jake Cooper, you just think it's just think of how it must feel to be for a second. Every listener that's listening, just think for a second how it must be to be a Charlton fan to once again watch a centre back who's up there and he buries it into the top of the. Just feel how that must feel when you're never going to beat that reprobate club from down the road that always seem to just are more aggressive and want it more than you. Oh, it just must be really hard, and I feel so sorry for them.
I think especially
just imagine being a Charlton fan and you've a club that has spent their entire history living in the shadow of Millwall. Yeah?
I mean, I don't think Charlton fans will have that for 1 second.
No, they won't.
Yeah,
We were in the Premier League.
1 second, yeah.
We were in the Premier League.
I know.
Yeah,
Alan Kirbishley days.
Fuck if they were in the Premier League. Yeah? they are an absolute fucking nothing non-entity. Yeah. Well, I'll go as far as to say they're more useless than Katie Price.
You're obsessed with Katie Price.
Oh, she's fucking
let's move on from this one anyway. I think the results and the history against Charlton, I think that has value to Charlton fans in the sense that we both say we don't care about the game, but we do really. And I think if Charlton had got a couple of wins over us in the last couple of years, then they might count it more as a bigger game than what they say it is, I think. And the fact that they keep losing these games against us, I think
it's their cup
going to hit home. Well, this is it. Like, especially in the last 10 years, I think Charlton and Leeds are probably the two biggest games we've had in the last 10 years, like League One days and Championship days. Charlton and Leeds have just always been a constant in that fact. So
what about Millwall, Omar? They only had to draw with us to stay in the division. Only one little draw against poor old little Millwall. And they were staying
30 seconds away from getting the point they needed because, let's not make any bones about it. They were going to get in the Premier League.
Yeah, and Lowell Taylor would have stayed and everything, and they would have just gone to the Premier League again.
Just one thing.
They wanted to get into the Premier League.
They never beat Millwall.
Yeah, when that geezer took over, that crooked solicitor or whatever.
Allegedly crooked solicitor.
Unco, his friends, in Roland we trust. Yeah, because... but let's be honest, we are there.
Getting cut.
No, that'll stay.
Cup final.
I agree. I think I'm sure that when Charlton eventually resurface one day in the Championship, I don't know when that's going to happen, to be honest with you. I'm sure we'll rekindle that rivalry. It would have been so much sweeter if we got promoted like last season as well, wouldn't it? Beat Charlton twice. Charlton ain't going to play us for a long while at that point. Oh, never mind. It is what it is. Let's talk about the next game after that. I mean, we won't talk too much more about July because we know how it's ended. Mill don't make the playoffs. But after the Charlton game, there's still a glimmer of hope. Neil Warnock comes to town in the Mission Impossible job he had at Middlesbrough. He's halfway there already. He does a job on us, beats us 2-0. What's your memories of that one, Tony? I mean, bloody hell, like, any glimmer?
Not as bad as the obviously game we just had away at Middlesbrough where we were just abject. That's the worst performance I've seen for years. But it was a game where we weren't at it. And that's, we cannot afford to drop our levels. And we did that. Quite honestly, Neil Warnock had his boys wanting it more. And they basically wanted it more than us. And because after that, we go to Hull, who are terrible, by the way. They were after losing Gerard Bowen, they were the worst team in the league. And Leonard scored an absolute wonder cracker from 35 yards out to get that. And it just showed you we can afford to be off our level slightly if you take one of our chances because of the way we defend. As long as we defend with intensity, we didn't defend with intensity in that Borough game. We just didn't want it as much as they wanted it, and quite rightly they got the 3 points that day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it was Fletcher that scored late on in the second half, and I think Millwall came to town and done a bit like how we've been playing recently with the 5 at the back, and just done it. Thought, you know what, we're going to stay in this game and we'll take our chance, and they did. Fair play to them. I mean, we'll go on to the other disappointment from that month. I mean, let's not gloss over the 3 wins that we had, or 4 wins in that month. We beat Hull 1-0, we beat Blackburn 1-0. Still a slim glimmer of hope, Kai, as we go to Loftus Road and we lose 4-3, don't we? What a game.
Yeah, it was a great game, wasn't it? It was one that you wouldn't expect with the Millwall way of sort of conceding very few and scoring very few, but it was a really weird game. Obviously, Mason Bennett goes off, I think, off about 15 minutes, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. And I think at that point, I think QPR at that point, they had abundance of pace. They had so much pace. Eze, actually, Eze didn't even play that day, but they still had so much pace. And with Bennett playing, I think it would have forced them back a little bit, because they would have known, had they come at us, they could have got done in behind. But obviously Bennett going off and Bodvarsson coming on, it just allowed them to even come at us even more, because they knew that whatever space they left in behind, they could catch Bodvarsson on that side. So I think Bennett going off was a massive that day. But yeah, disappointing defeat, and it obviously ended up ending the playoff hopes.
I don't think we ever led that game, did we? I think it was pretty sure we was chasing a lot of the time, and I think we got at one point 3-1 down. I think Hutchinson got one back to make it 3-2, if memory serves me right, and then they made it 4-2, and it kind of all she wrote. I think Malumbi got consolation right at the end. His first legitimate goal for the club. I mean, yeah, it was the hope, wasn't it, Tony? We still had that little slim glimmer of hope at the time, didn't we?
Millwall is the epitome of Millwall. When we've got it in our hands. It was close, and we just far too often in our history we just don't quite make it over the line. And the same happened with the return of Tim Cahill and the Fulham home game, where we absolutely batter Fulham for the first half. We go in, and then right on half time, they score, and our playoff dreams are smashed. And it was very similar that day against QPR. We just always looked second best, because let's face it, we are not a good enough squad to get into the playoffs, and that's how it felt at the time. I think actually, and we'll move on to the summer signings, I felt with the additions that we've made, if we'd have kept Malumbi as well, I think we are a better squad, but we just weren't good enough, and it showed that day. We were just getting opened up by a very quick, mobile QPR side, and it kind of, that doesn't mean that if we made it to the playoffs that we wouldn't have got to the Premier League, because you just never know with us. If we can grind out results, but if it's down on talent and it's an open game, we're very, very rarely going to come out on top of that.
100%. I mean, that's it. I think it's when we're riding the crest of the wave, so to speak, anything's possible. But the realism of it is, and this is why it hurts for last season, that we're not going. Then chances don't come often. We had that. The late surgery run under Harris, like you said, when Cahill came back. But it was such a golden opportunity, I feel like, last season. And for us, unfortunately, it didn't go the way we wanted it to. I think we closed the season with 4-1 win. Connor Mahoney, I thought, played a good game that day, if I remember rightly, Neil. I mean, we closed the season with 4-1 win. A bit of kind of, a sign of things to come, hopefully, in the new season at the time.
Mate, I don't give a fuck about that 4-1 win over the end of the season, because I was still fucking depressed from that QPR game. That QPR game, the hope, the expectation, as others have said, it encompasses everything what it is like to be a fucking Millwall fan. And I don't often get depressed at defeats, and I don't often take defeats badly. But that QPR game knocked the stuffing out of me for about 3 days afterwards.
I feel like, yeah, ultimately we finished 2 points.
Yeah, you might have just have stopped the fucking season. I watched that Huddersfield game, but I couldn't tell you one thing about it apart from their shit.
It was a damp squid. It was a damp squid, nothing to play for game. So
it was just the hope, wasn't it, that we could have. It would have just been the Millwall way for us to have sneaked into the playoffs and then gone and fucking won them with nobody there to be able to go and watch them.
It would have been.
Then we'd have been in the Premier League this year. And we still couldn't have fucking gone and watched them, could we? It was just the Millwall way, and it's just so deflating just thinking about that QPR game.
I think
it was apart, and
it was a QPR game, and a couple of games straight after lockdown, what we could have won, and we didn't. We just didn't do what we needed to do. We could have sealed it up fairly easily and been in that position. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'd rather have not been in the Premiership now. I'd rather, get our shit together and have a good season this season, next, and push towards there and get in there with fans being able to go, because not being able to go to the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, West Ham, etc., no fan base, would have just been pointless being there, especially if we didn't really stay up for another season. It would have been heartless. It would have been a massive anticlimax, even though I reckon most fans probably would have gone to all those towns where we were playing in. But it was there for our taking, but did we really want it? Because I don't think anyone would have been able to take on the actual glory of being in the Premiership, really.
I hate the sorry, Tony, just 1 second. I hate the legitimacy of that argument, right? And I understand your point of like the fans not being there, so that was a big loss. But in my lifetime, we've come close, I think, 3 times to the playoffs in the Premier League. Like, you can't pick and choose your moments. The whole try again in a couple of years' time. That might not happen. But go on, Tony. I'll let you go.
I was gonna say that, that along the same lines, because with Millwall, we're not a team that's gonna, guaranteed to be in the Championship. Never mind challenging for the Premiership. We are as likely, and we'll go into what could happen this year. If we go on a bad run this year, we get relegated to League One, and the Premiership is a long way away. The one thing I do agree with, obviously, it would have been horrible to only be, for the fans that go, it would have been horrible not to be at the stadiums, not to have that atmosphere, not to have Liverpool there, not to be able to enjoy that experience. However, the financial footing that it would have enabled us to put us on would have, would have been, it would have been so amazing for us to be able to do that. And like you said, both you and Kai, although I was young, I've seen us in the top flight. I remember it as one of my earliest memories of Millwall is being in the top flight. So, you can't throw away that chance. And we've got close, not as close as some, but we've got close. The Birmingham playoffs, and then obviously more recently we've got close to the playoffs. But we haven't had Championship level strikers to score us the goals to get us up, really. And we also and now we haven't had the squad, because through the lockdown we haven't had the squad to be able to challenge, and that's really where we've suffered.
I think that brings me on neatly to the summer window, because we're talking about transfers and the players we've got. I mean, we had a couple of departures that Aidan O'Brien left the club finally. Obviously it's not really worked out for him so far, but looks at it on the face of it at Sunderland. But, O'Brien leaves, obviously someone that came through the academy. The same with the likes of, obviously, like I mentioned, Balumbi gone, McCarthy went full time. And then we make a few signings. Scott Malone arrives, Bennett arrives on the permanent deal. A bit of optimism, so to speak, there, Kai, isn't it? Woods extends his loan deal. Troy Parrott arrives in SC16 as well,
Good afternoon. Would you like to try a free sample of our double fudge brownie?
Oh, sure. That's very good. I'll just take one more, just to be sure. Yep, still very good.
Some things never change, like never being able to take just one free sample. And Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
Is that macadamia nut I taste? Let me take one more.
Sir?
Yeah, I thought so.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
I feel like there's a bit of optimism going into this season, isn't there?
Definitely, I think it was a pretty tidy window. I think getting Ryan Woods back was quite a popular opinion. Him signing on the first day of the transfer window was lovely as well. Sort of a nice surprise. I didn't actually expect that. Mason Bennett, obviously, I think we always knew that was coming as long as we could get I think it was something to do with the price down. So that we always felt that was coming. But Scott Malone was an interesting one. I never expected that. It was quite a surprise. And then Troy Parrott obviously arriving as well. We had high hopes for him, didn't we? But he hasn't so far lived up to them. But hopefully he stays second half of the season. Hopefully he can.
I think he was unfortunate with Parrott. Obviously had, I think a few goals in pre-season. I think he scored a nice little chip against Southend. I think, that I remember seeing the highlight on Twitter. A lot of optimism, wasn't there, Tony, at the time, kind of thinking, we're going to kick on, and we start the season with a cup game at Crawley, score 3 goals, albeit against Leeds the opposition. But it was a nice little opener to things to come, I felt like at the time.
I felt that we strengthened in the summer, but we still had what we didn't do was get rid of the average players in the squad. We still had players that were they're not championship quality in my opinion. So I was optimistic. I thought Parrott was going to be so much better than he has turned out to be. If young Premiership loans can go one of 2 ways. They either hit the ground running like Brewster has done and got his move, or Parrott, getting injured obviously didn't help him. But whenever he played, I never saw him take a game by the scruff of the neck. I never thought he dominated an opposing defender, and that's what you want. You want someone to come in and really do that. And I've said what about Woods and how happy I am. Bennett, fantastic, but he's a sick note. He's far too happy to not play than he is to play. And then the third signing, obviously, of Scott Malone, who he just seems to me a little bit of a headless chicken. He runs around the pitch a lot, but he seems to be running around in circles. He doesn't have any kind of direction a lot of the time. And defensively, he's being asked to do more than I think he needs to be asked to do. If he was played more as a kind of a winger rather than a defensive player, we'd get more out of him, because the defensive side of his game was always rocky, and it's not changed since. I
think it was a bit surprised to see him arrive. I think, you say square pegs in round holes, whatever the saying goes. I think Malone just ticked the box. It's kind of like, if you start the window, I felt like in that position we needed another option to Wallace. And in that sense, Malone, it's a sensible option. Is he going to commit to a permanent deal afterwards? I probably doubt it, but it depends again on how we get on this season. So then the season kicks off, a 0-0 draw at home against Stoke, followed by another cup game, then a first away win of the season, albeit in a very fortuitous way, the way the goal came about. But September ends in a positive note, I suppose, in a sense. We're thinking, here we go. But then we have Burnley in the cup, and then Brentford, which is also a positive, I felt, draw at the time, undefeated in September. Maybe, things started to slowly click, I suppose, at the Brentford game, I felt like at the time. Neil, we gave him a good game, I felt like at the time.
For a team that everybody was predicting were going to walk the league this year, I know they lost a couple of very good players in the summer transfer window, but we stood toe to toe with them, didn't we? We gave as good as we got, and it summed up our month. Really, we had a pretty good month. I think we won away at Rotherham, as you said. A lot easier with no fans in. I think it's benefited the away team not having fans in grounds. We were brought down to earth at Stoke, weren't we? Stoke at home couldn't score. All of this, everybody was. I was really excited by the signing of Troy Parrott. You've seen him come through the ranks at Spurs, and you thought, wow, this could be a game changer. This could be the goals that we need to get, that we were missing at the end of last season, that could have turned the likes of Barnsley away into a win, and Sheffield Wednesday away into a win. And we just weren't outplayed, were we, in that in that Brentford game? I thought we looked the better side.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think, it could have been, I feel like we should include, I know October is a new month, but I guess the block of games, so to speak, we had that disappointing defeat then against Swansea before the international break. And after the optimism of the Brentford game, like I mentioned the Rotherham game, we was lucky to win that purely because their defender messed up and Jed Wallace is through on goal 1-on-1, isn't he, Tony? I think, that Swansea game on the other hand, though, I don't know, it felt like it was kind of the only consolation to come from that day was Bradshaw get his first goal in 9 months.
Well, that, like I said earlier, that Bradshaw, Woodvarson, anyone other than Smith, really, any of our forward players other than Smith, just haven't scored goals. And I agree completely with Neil. The signing of Troy Parrott excited me. I really felt like he was going to come in and start making waves, and he just didn't. I know the injury, I say again, the injury just held him back, but we just don't take our chances. Our decision making in the final third, because so much is left to Jed Wallace to create. And it really annoys me when Jed gets stick, because if you see the amount of like goal scoring chances that he provides, he's up there in the top 2 or 3 of the whole championship. It's not his. I know that there's probably 3 or 4 times in a game where he does the wrong thing, but he's crossing into the box, his delivery, his movement is so good that I think we get to the stage as Millwall fans where we just want to blame everything on a player and say you're not doing this or you're not doing that. Jed Wallace to me is definitely one of the best. I don't think he's Premiership quality if you ask me, but what he brings to this side and the chances that he creates, we just need a striker to put them away, and that's what we got with the end of October. We got Zaha in, and I thought, here we go. Troy Parrott comes back from injury. We got Zaha. We really could start doing something in the Championship, because no matter what game we've been, most games we've created 2 or 3 chances, 3 or 4 chances, but a front 2 that are able to move, or a front 1 that's able to get around the pitch, because that's unfortunately what Matt Smith doesn't do. We want to be able to press, but you can't with Matt Smith. So it really hamstrings us in our decision making and how we set out the team. But we're always going to struggle having to play Bradshaw and Budvarsson up front, even though, to be fair, in the last couple of games they've raised their levels.
I think they've had to. I think with the run we've had, which we'll get on to in a bit. But, you mentioned October. I think, we had the international break, and I felt like it came at a good time. We kind of had a block of games. The Swansea defeat was unfortunate, but you looked at them fixtures coming back, and, if I felt like if we didn't win them games, then you get an indication of where the season's going to go at the time. And we beat Wickham 2-1. I think Smith scores that day, doesn't he? He was instrumental in both the goals. And, then we play Luton at home, win 2-0. And then we have the 1-1 draw against Barnsley. But let's put a bit of context to that. Rowett's not in the dugout. His first game isolating at home after I think he tested positive for COVID. And, it was the kind of testing thought of how we're going to do without him. But Pearson Williams take the throne and away at Preston North End when the rest of the coach staff isolate. So Horse scores. And then he gets injured. I mean, Kai, couldn't break. If you're looking at it analytically from if someone looks at it far away and doesn't have the emotion of Millwall, you could probably say Rowett is really unlucky with the signings he's made, getting injured. That he knows the same as us what's different makers he needs. They get injured all the time, don't they? It seems.
Definitely, absolutely, and I think that one against Preston with Ken Zaha. Since Parrott's come back, Rowett said a number of times when he first came back, he said we need to start off by giving him 60 minutes and we'll go from there. And I think with him not in the dugout that day against Preston, had he have been in the dugout, I don't think Zaha gets injured, because I think he gets pulled off earlier. I think Pearson Williams will probably get a little bit excited. He looked very good that day. But he comes off, I think, 75th minute. He probably should have come off 65 minutes probably. And if he does that, he carries on. But you can't blame them too much. They haven't got that experience. But, I think had Rowett been there that day, I don't think Zaha gets injured.
Hindsight's everything. I agree with you. And, that's it. Parrott's injured. Zaha comes in. It's unfortunate for him, Rowett and Neil, isn't it? But end of the day, it doesn't really explain why the form slumped the way it did for the rest of the year. But we've played Huddersfield, lose 3-0 the last game with Pearson Williams in charge. What a weird defeat that was.
That was awful, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't look. We just looked like strangers, didn't we? And Pearson Williams, they just didn't have a Scooby how to change it, did they? They were just stood there. They looked out of their depth, to be honest, as managers. I think we caught Preston at the right time. They couldn't win at home for toffee, could they? And we went up there and we did a number on them. Absolutely smashed them to pieces. We did to them what Huddersfield did to us.
I suppose if you can't win if you get turned over 3-0, there's nothing like a good 0-0 draw afterwards at Norwich City to follow up to kind of show encouraging signs, don't I?
But you can't complain at that Huddersfield defeat, because we were just outplayed, weren't we, for 90 minutes? We can't make an excuse for it. Okay, you can say that Rowett might have been able to have changed things around. He might have, but judging by the Middlesbrough game, he probably wouldn't have done it. He just sat on his ass making notes at his fucking seat for an hour, and then decided that we might as well. I might as well do something about this.
I think it was a tough bringing down for Pearson Williams. I can only imagine that coach journey home after Preston. everyone buzzing. You know, Wallace talking after the game saying he'd done the performance. You know, everyone put a shift in for their teammates, for their friends, for their colleagues. You know, and I can imagine that bus home being so like, you know, energetic and excited and thinking, you know, that's superb. I can't believe we've done that. And then they got brought down to earth, don't they, Tony, against Huddersfield? But I suppose that in a weird way, you can see exactly why that happened, can't you?
You can, and Neil said it perfectly about the lack of management experience on the sidelines. It's one of those things where it can't be replicated. You know, it's all well and good. That Preston performance, they could rally the boys, get them G'd up, get out there and give everything. That only takes your team so far. Because as soon as things don't start to go the way that you want them to go, it's then having the ability to change them. And we just didn't, you know, they were better than us. Huddersfield were better than us. And sometimes you have that. Championship teams, when they're on song, any team can beat any team. And it's how you bounce back from that. And I felt we did actually really well. You know, moving on to the game straight afterwards, we pick up I wouldn't say a well-earned point at Norwich, because Norwich definitely deserved all 3 points. But you walk away from Carrow Road thinking we got a good point there. And what we just didn't do for the rest of that month is the games where we were on top, we didn't take the chances. We didn't win. And draw after draw after draw, after those 5 draws, which was unbelievable. What you know, the draw is very good if after the draw you get a win. If after the draws that we had, you have a couple of defeats, it makes those draws look really, really poor. And that's ultimately what ended up happening.
I think even by the time the Birmingham game came along, the 5th game of that month, you know, 5 games unbeaten, I suppose, Kai, is a good thing, though. But by the time that game came, Kai, I was thinking, just even if Birmingham score here, I just want to see a goal. It was so boring to watch, wasn't it? I was thinking, like, 5 games of this, it's hard watch.
Yeah, that Birmingham one was especially boring. I thought Reading and Cardiff were, I guess, slightly more entertaining. You know, I do think we probably should have won maybe 2 or 3 of them. I think we should have definitely beaten Reading, and, you know, apart from a Scott Malone mistake, we beat Cardiff as well. But then again, you know, we could have doubled our lead against Cardiff quite a few times, and then obviously Bob Varston misses that late chance. But by the time Birmingham came, we just looked. Draw was felt like a defeat to me. It was really boring, and I felt that we needed a goal scorer, but Parrott was starting to get more minutes, and I did feel more hopeful. But obviously December didn't start great, and it started to feel quite negative.
It was horrendous though that day, wasn't it? Up at Birmingham, I think, if you remember, it was pissing down with rain, and it's an antisocial place at the best of times with the way they spank like this and with gloomy like on side. And it's just a thoroughly depressing, miserable, godforsaken shithole, isn't it, Birmingham? I'm sorry if anybody is from Birmingham that listens, but fuck me, thank God I don't go there that often.
I remember before the game wishing I was there, and then after the game thinking, well, at least I ain't got to travel back after watching that. You know what I mean? Like, I was just happy to turn it off, go downstairs and have a beer. That's all I was thinking after that. Like, that just summed up our month of November. And then December comes along, a tough away day at Blackburn. Let's be honest, I think Blackburn are a good side. I mean, I think they've struggled recently since this, like, the game's coming thick and fast, but they've got a lot of attacking options, and we're talking about players being, you know, making difference for us. I mean, Kai, you've got Adam Armstrong, Harvey Elliott, Ben Brereton, you know, Bradley Dack came back to finish recently for them as well. That's an exciting team, isn't it?
Sorry, can I step in there?
Go on.
Yeah. We were fucking cheated at Blackburn.
Well, we're going to get onto that.
Yeah, Blackburn actually weren't any good, yeah? Yeah, but they were okay. But we were cheated by the referee, yeah? I'm not going to blame a referee too often, but that cunt cheated like fuck.
So Neil's going to upset Charlton fans, Birmingham fans, people of Birmingham, and now people of Blackburn and the referee community. Good on you, Neil.
I don't give a flying fuck, yeah? We were denied 3 gilt-edged, clear-cut penalties, yeah? And they weren't even marginal fucking decisions. One of them, he fucking punched a ball off the cunt's head. And the referee patting himself on the back after the game, thinking he's had a great game. No, mate, you're a fucking cunt. Sorry. Yeah, but now that's kind of question.
Well, yeah. So there you go. I mean, I was going to get onto that.
I fully agree with him, though.
But Blackburn have got I've got a lot of strikers there that make me excited to watch them if I was a neutral. You know what I mean? Like they play. I think like they flattered us that day a little bit. A lot of people came out the game thinking we created chances, but I think we created chances because everyone's going to create chances against a Blackburn side that plays 4 attackers. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's just me, Kai, but what did you make of that?
No, I agree. I think look at, for example, we look at Leeds in the Premiership right now. You know, they're scoring goals for fun, but they also ship goals for fun. So you've got to get that balance, and Blackburn seem to be playing like that. They're very free-flowing side. They score a lot of goals. They've got Harvey Elliott, who's been brilliant, I think, this year. He looks a really good prospect. But yeah, I agree with Neil. We should have had three blatant penalties, and we actually spoke on here afterwards, didn't we? After the defeat, and we were saying that. And I you know, it actually made me feel better to talk about it afterwards than sort of. I went away from that little podcast we had that feeling good. Sort of talk about it then, because I was really disappointed myself.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, mate. And I mean, Tony, if things weren't going from bad to worse at this point, you know, I think it's 7 without a win at this point. Struggling Derby comes to town and they get a win against us just to sum things up.
The worst thing for me about the Blackburn game, other than obviously the 3 penalties, is that we played well. We kept the ball well. We attacked with intensity. We looked like we were going to get at them. Obviously, we create some chances. And then to go from that to again a woeful, you know, I said on the at home with Zach on our YouTube channel that was the worst Derby side I had ever seen. I've never seen the Derby side make so many mistakes. Just couldn't play football, you know. And to be fair, I got a bit of stick from Derby fans afterwards, but I think they were so happy that they were probably that they got 3 points that it messed their. But I just felt that they were really poor but we were worse. And that's what really frustrated me, is just that Derby deserved to win the game. We'd done absolutely nothing. And you're thinking that was the real low point for me when I thought it did get worse, but it was a real low point in thinking we cannot be that bad again in terms of how we set ourselves up, in terms of defensively at home. You want us to go, and to be fair, we were better against QPR in the following game in terms of how we set ourselves up, created a few more chances, and QPR, obviously, we had fans back. But you know, that was the big thing for the Derby game, was that the fans were there. You want them to really give everything, and it just became a damp squib. I remember watching it on TV. You know, Let Them Come was playing on the iFollow, and I felt emotional. I felt gutted that I was not there. You know, the fact that fans had been allowed. And then after the game, I felt, although I still wanted to be to the game, I thought, what a load of shit that was. There's no getting around it. And it was terrible it's just typical Millwall. Again, I'll say it. Just when you think everything is right there for us to take and grasp, the last game at the Old Den, you know, the score doesn't really matter, but we blow it and it's 3-0 to them. Just when it's right there for Millwall, we just seem to throw it away. And that Derby performance in front of our home fans was very, very, very annoying.
No, I have to agree, mate. And I think that's it. Like, I remember watching people post on social media from the press box, you know, the peers coming out and leading the team out for the warm-up in the Derby game. And I was thinking, like you, I wish I was there massively. And I spoke about it many times on this podcast, so I don't need to go into that again. But, you know, the QPR game was a 1-1, and for that, you know, reasons affecting around the pitch, so to speak, you know, a lot could be said about that one as well. Sky coverage, we've all spoke about in the past. But then we go to Middlesbrough, Neil. I'm just all I'm going to say to you. We go to Middlesbrough.
We have to talk about this Middlesbrough game.
Well, I feel like it's significant because things change after that.
Because we played like a bunch of fucking cunts, so it couldn't get any worse.
Come to you at the right time for you to have a line up, I think.
Yeah.
I set you up nicely for all the down parts.
Exactly. Seriously, we played like a bunch of cunts, didn't we?
Yeah, terrible.
That was just... And the worst thing for me was Rowett just sat there looking at it. He wasn't up getting at him. He was sat down making notes. And that wound me up more than the 3 goals, actually. Because you want your manager up. You want him trying to change stuff, not writing something down to try and for a damage limitation exercise at half time. Yeah, you want him to wind some fucks into him. And oh mate, that was just an afternoon best forgotten. I think it summed up that week that we'd had around the club, obviously, with the knee and Sky and QPR, and there was just a dampener, wasn't there, around the whole place? Like, we didn't want to record podcasts at the time, did we? I think we forced ourselves after that Middlesbrough game. And
you getting us muddled up with someone else there?
Well, we didn't we was going to do a show, weren't we? We didn't do it in the end.
Yeah, that's right.
We recorded a show and then we decided that actually we won't add to the misery. We won't put it out. But we went straight back to doing a show in the week.
We didn't do it though. He's right.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. And that just summed up that week, really, that performance, didn't it? Let's be honest.
No, you're right.
It was just a shit time. It was just a shit time where the media and everybody jumped on us, the results and everything else. And it was just a shit fucking couple of weeks. But we're Millwall fans, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean? It is what it is, and we deal with it and we move forward. And one thing what we don't do as Millwall fans is, because probably since Panorama 1977, the media have always had it in for us, and we've always played shit and good and shit and bad and everything else. So we just go, okay, yeah, we'll have a whinge and a moan for a couple of days, and then we move forward and we forget about it and move on. It's just unfortunate that sometimes the rest of the world don't seem to forget about it.
Yeah, but that lingered though, Mickey. That lingered for a week.
No, yeah. I agree. It did linger for a week, but again, it's down to, I think the PR and everything else just didn't look after it. I think everything around it was just, it was just a bad fucking situation, badly managed, and everything else. What added to the negativity around it? It left a nasty taste in everyone's mouth, and it didn't need to. It could have been managed so much better. It didn't need to go to anything like what it did. But unfortunately, as always, it's us, the fans, who get thrown in front of the bus.
We're not here to talk about this today anyway. We're here to talk about the football. Let's move on to the final two games of our year, so to speak, and a 2-0 victory after 10 winless games away at Ashton Gate, Bristol City, 4-4-2. No Ryan Woods in the team, and we go and win, Tony. Let's talk about that. I said we'll come back to Ryan Woods, so I feel like I'll give you the right of that one. But anyway, 2-0 win away at Bristol City, mate.
It was brilliant to see, to be fair, because I felt that something had to change, didn't it? Something had to change, and I don't put that on Woods at all. I put that on the formation change. I put it on the formation change and playing two players up front that were mobile. Both Budvarsson and Bradshaw were able to. Let's face it, Bristol City they could field another 11 of players that are injured. So we caught them at the right time. But we were just by far the better team today. On the day again, if you look at how we, the last big away win at Forest, and then there's similarities to how we performed against Bristol City. We just were dominant, and and Kai's right. He said earlier about you're always waiting for us to concede in games like that. That Bristol City game, we never looked like conceding at all. And in fact, they were so, obviously Jeju got him come on for a couple of minutes, got himself sent off, so he didn't have to play in that shower of shit team. Straight into the showers, and we dominated the game. And to be fair, at home to Forest, we should have won the game, and we should be on the back of 2 wins, but. Like what's happened, we took our chances against Bristol City. One was a deflected goal, and so you take that with a pinch of salt. But the Forest game, we should have done better in terms of getting all 3 points, and then on the back of 2 wins going into the Christmas period, which fortunately we've had. Players have been able to spend some time at home with their families, and I think it's massively important. I really expect us now to be refreshed. Players have been at home. Even if football's allowed to continue, which I'm sure it would be because it's a money-making business, we've had time to work on things where we're struggling, work on technique and tactics, and I think we should come out firing. And obviously, Zahore's looking like he's coming back. Things are starting to look a little bit more rosy again after, let's face it, a run of 10 without a win. We needed a big change, and I don't think Woods is the difference. I think the fact that we had 2 mobile strikers and changed the formation and changed the attitude, the players looked like they really wanted to win at Bristol City, and that's the difference.
What
That was
else?
actually a proper Millwall performance, Tony, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That's exactly. We up and at them. Everybody was wanting the ball. Everybody. But what I liked also was that they were comfortable on the ball. They weren't looking to get rid of it. The amount of times I would love to see the actual stats of players running on the ball in that game, because Leonard done it when he. I think not Leonard. Yeah, Leonard done it in the midfield. Williams done it on the midfield. They were all looking to run with the ball, and that's what creates space for the front two. And it just worked really well.
I actually said it on here. Sorry, guys, but I actually said it on here where I think that day we had the most ball carries in the whole division, 13 dribbles forwards.
Yeah,
and
so I didn't know the stats. But
yeah, it was. I saw it online, and I was like, it made sense. Like players took the ball, and instead of just giving it to Jeds or playing it safe and looking for the easy option, it was let's get the ball and let's make a difference in this game, and let's travel forward and cause a havoc. You know what I mean? I think that was really obvious that day. I mean, go on, Neil. I'll let you get what you got to say.
Yeah, but we talk about a proper Millwall performance, and that was a proper Millwall performance. I think Rowett took on board that we needed to change the formation. There were people calling for him to be sacked, for fuck's sake. After that Middlesbrough game, as ludicrous as it was. Yeah, and we needed a proper performance, and we got one. Yeah, and we kind of got one against Forest. We should have won that Forest game, but we got undone by a dopey long ball over the top that one of our central defenders left, and the other one got muscled out the way, didn't he, or something? And
both of them should have got it. Both of them had a chance to get the ball. It went under Hutch's foot. Ironically, Graben miscontrolled it. If Graben controls it on the edge of the box, it stops the ball going through. But he miscontrols it, which gets a little deflection. But it's just after we score. It was all through the game, the momentum's building. The first half was not great. Second half, we came out, we were straight at them, create a few chances, get the goal, and then what we did. It's the old adage: you are most vulnerable when you've just scored. We switch off for a second, they equalise, and then for the rest of the game, we're trying to score again, but we're a little bit more deflated. I was quite happy with how we reacted to go to being 1-1, because I was gutted, because you're thinking you've done all that work to take the lead, then you're likely to drop, but we didn't. We created chances again after that. We just didn't take them.
I mean, Kai, I'm interested in what you think about this one, mate, but Bodvarsson is the last couple of games, he just looked a different player, didn't he? I feel that's significant because, he missed that chance against Cardiff that you mentioned earlier, and run of games where we're drawing, and he's playing up front on his own and he's not really affecting the game. But as soon as he's got pressure next to him, he looked like an extra yard of pace, especially for the goal against Nottingham Forest. The way he's managed to get to the byline and square it to Bradshaw, he caused havoc, didn't he?
Absolutely, Bradshaw. Bodvarsson had a lot of criticism, rightly so, after that Cardiff miss. That was really poor miss. But since then, he's looked like a different player to me. Obviously, scores against QPR and cups his ears to the fans, which probably doesn't go down very well at all. But he does pretty well. Obviously he brings him on against Borough after already 3-0 down, which he didn't do much in that game. But against Bristol City, I thought he was excellent. Him and Bradshaw looked really, really good. It's a partnership that is blossoming, and it would have been really interesting to see how they would have carried on against Bournemouth. But against Forest, he won. We were saying when we were watching it, we were saying how many balls he won in the air in the first half. He was flicking them on, and them defenders, Joe Worrell and I think his name's So, but they're not small. So a physical game is definitely getting a lot better, and he looked, as you said, a lot quicker against Forest.
It leaves you wondering though, why has it took it to this point for him to then have that sort of effect? Like, I feel like when I watched him play past, like especially when he was at the ground, like you could tell he reads the game, but he just plays in slow motion. I felt like, and he didn't really affect the games enough. And it's good to see that happening now. Maybe with Sahor coming back, it could be interesting.
He's got to be in his bonnet.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously he's one of these players that needs to play angry, so he's got a point to prove. I feel like he, for whatever reason, has kind of gone through his Mill career flatline. He's not really done anything. And this really, the criticism that he got after the Cardiff game, he suspended his social media accounts. And obviously it got to him. And that's what he needed, because he's come back with a bit of a fight in his belly. Like you said, he was going up against bigger defenders. And Worrell, muscling them out, flicking it on. And if what he needs to do is continue that. It's no good doing it for a couple of games and then going back to because it's funny, but the Icelandics are known for that. They're very quiet people for most of the time, but when it comes to going to war, they then have that that ability to just take over and go mental, and that's what he kind of needs to do. That he's too placid most of the time. He needs to have that fight in his belly the whole time, and it'll be interesting to see if he can continue where he's left off.
He allegedly got, the reason is social media and all that, allegedly he got death threats, some nasty threats and all that. So if he has taken that all on board and decided, fuck you and come back to prove a point, then it's working. If that's his ammunition.
It feels like you're encouraged. I felt like the angle you're going there is encouraging those sort of messages towards him.
That's
definitely not what you were saying there. But the way it came across to me, I took it that way.
No, it's definitely not what I'm saying. I mean, to give a player death threats and whatnot is, a strange setup. Same as calling your manager to leave halfway through a season is another strange one.
Yeah, I just think people that's talking about Rowett getting sacked are just, for me, they're not football people. I don't understand the mentality of that kind of straight grabbing hold of it. Yeah, Rowett. Based on what? Who are you getting in? Like, what are you going to change? And I agree with Neil. Yeah, it's very frustrating. The Middlesbrough game, he's sitting down there taking notes, or he might be doing a crossword. That is frustrating, and we don't want to see that. However, we're not getting tonked most weeks. Talk about him losing the dressing room, and that's where that Bristol City showed. How, based on what? Where were he's lost the dressing room, or he doesn't know how to make change? Where is that coming from? I don't understand the mindset of people that just constantly feel the need to criticise without basing it on fact, basing it on what they see. And that's, in that situation, calling for Rowett's head after a bad. If you do that in football, we'll end up like bloody Watford with 6 managers a season. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. I think the problem is that, with Woods not playing, which will fire you up again, Woods not playing, we look like a completely different team. Everyone in the team seemed to be playing different, going back to the formation, worked. But do I think that Rowlett needs to be out, or is it an experienced manager and he don't know what he's doing? No, I don't. But what we don't know is how much has COVID and this current situation had an effect on the players. Have we been training in the same way that we would be training without COVID? Are the players training together? Are they doing solo training and et cetera, et cetera? We don't know. So there could be lots and lots of different entities at play here, what we don't fully know about.
I think we are training together, Mickey. I think the underlying thing that's killed the club is...
I don't know if we are.
We are.
Yeah. I've been past the training ground.
We are, mate. Yeah, it is. Everything's normal. And yeah, you did say Rowlett, by the way. I did notice it, and I wanted to call you out on it, but I didn't. But nice reviews coming in for that one. But but yeah, no, I think
I said it on purpose.
The difficulty is obviously we've not had fans, and I think that's really killed us. And I hope we're not going to get him for a little while anyway. We're not going to be able to see him for a little bit longer. But going into January, we need to back the manager and see what he can do. I think we need to. It's difficult times. We've had Kieran from the Price Football come on, and Mill's losing £10 million in the last financial year. It's probably going to be more because there's less fans, obviously, less matches for them to come to as well. It's going to be testing times, but we need to back him, don't we? And hopefully get some signings in. I mean, Kai, what areas do you think we need to improve in? If you was asked that question, if you was Rowett, what would you be looking to do if you had the opportunity to?
For me, it depends massively whether Parrott and Zohore both stay. If they both stay, then I think we're fine in the striker department. But I would like to see a left winger come in, someone to sort of challenge Bennett and Mahoney and give a bit more competition to Jed as well. I'd also like to see a central midfielder come in, someone like Jason Malumbi, and also a central attacking midfielder, a number 10 that would sort of play in behind and give opportunity. But the question is that obviously Danny McNamara coming back, so that's good. That gives cover to Marlon. But yes, I'd like to see a centre midfielder, number 10, a left winger, and obviously depending whether Parrott and Zohore stay or not, then obviously if they left, both be replaced. But apparently, obviously Scalak, and see if Scalak goes. If Scalak goes, I guess we'll replace him as well. So we'll have to see what happens.
That'll be an interesting one. I think if we can move some more deadwood away. I mean, Conor Mahoney you mentioned there, and I know he's been injured the last few weeks, but I feel like he's having opportunities to impress. He had some earlier in the season. Are we going to see him come good, Tony? I mean, I'm not sure with Mahoney.
I think he has come good. I think just when he's starting to look good, he picked up an injury. he's a game changer. You know, not consistent, but that comes with a run of games. You know, you only get consistency if you're consistently playing. And I think that he's looked good when he's had a run of games. He had a run of games before the injury, and he was starting to make a difference in games. The problem we've got is that we have far too many. Like, we fully rely on Jed. The creativity in the final third is fully down to Jed making the right decisions. Because when we have the wing backs go forward, it's useless. You know, whether it's Malone, whether it's Murray Wallace, whether it's Marlon Romeo, their balls into the box are atrocious. But it's only when you have Fergie or Jed on the pitch that we actually, because we never attack through the middle. Everything comes down the channels, and so we need, and that's why it's nonsensical that sometimes we've brought Smith on and took Mahoney off, and you're thinking, no, you need that crossing ability. Mahoney can put in a fantastic ball. You know, Ferguson can put in a fantastic ball, and so can Jed. We look dangerous when we are able to give our quality players time on the ball, and I think Mahoney's got that. You know, it's going to be massive because we're going to get Billy Mitchell back, who's going to add strength and depth in a central midfield position, not at right back where he played as a makeshift right back like Leonard. I think you'll get into Hall back if we can keep him, like Kai said. That's massive because I think he's an excellent striker. He's definitely championship level. He will score goals, and that's not based on really what he's done in a Mill shirt, but what he's done through his for previous clubs. You know, get Mahoney back, Mitchell back, and Zahor back. That's like 3 new signings. If Parrott stays, because there was talk that he's going, you know, the amount of journalists that said that he's going, but they're based on one source, we don't know whether he's staying or whether he's going. If he's fit, it would be really interesting to see him, because what he's done far too wrong, in my opinion, is he's a striker and he keeps dropping deep. You know, obviously he's a number. You want him to be in and around the box and taking shots. I'd love to know the stats on how many shots Parrott has actually had on goal, because I bet it's under 5. I cannot remember him having many shots on target, and that just shows you. You know, we brought him in as a striker, and he's not getting in the position to have shots on goal. And we do need to strengthen, but I think Murray Wallace should be playing at left back every single week. I think he's absolutely superb and underrated, but we do need cover for him. You know, Danny McNamara coming back from St Johnstone is massive. You know, I think he's a fantastic player. You know, he looked good in pre-season, you know, good going forward, good going back. I know the Scottish Premier League is not the same level as the Championship, mostly, you know, obviously other than the top 2. But I think he's going to be a massively quality addition. You've got Hayden Muller coming through, who looks like he can step up to the next level. So we've got a bit, but we do need to back the manager. You know, Rowett has bought well in the past. I think if he's given some money, if we can get rid of Scalat, because he shouldn't be a professional footballer. If we get rid of players such as that, because Scalat's one of the most paid players at the club, we get him off the wage bill. We bring someone else in. You know, there's every chance we should be looking to finish 11th and 12th, and then see where we are in March. And we can always push forward, but we need to back Rowett 100% at this stage.
You bring me neatly onto the predictions. I mean, should I jump in there, Mickey? But I mean, you know, I'll come to you actually, Mickey, for this one. What are you thinking for the rest of the season as a whole?
I think we'll be all right. I think we'll probably do a nice little push once we get Parrott back fit with Zahor, and I think we'll have Jason back in January. I've got a feeling that Romeo will be gone in January, and I think that's why we've recalled the young lad back, just to give us a replacement for now.
Do you really think he's lying?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, I think so.
Based purely on what's happened in the last month?
Basically, with everything that's gone on, hearsay with everything that's gone on as well, read between the lines, I think it's probably going to be untenable for him there. And also I can see agents and everyone else working as best they can to get him out of there. And I think he'll go. I mean, there's rumours floating around how much we're possibly going to get, etc., etc. And I think the club would be right to cash in if they can get a couple of million for him. Cash in.
I don't know where I sit on that. I mean, admittedly, Romeo,
he's a good player and he's great for us. But if he's not happy with us, then
yeah, of course, if that's the situation,
we don't need him here, do we? That's the problem.
He strikes me as quite a loyal person. Like in his interview after the game at Derby, you know, yes, he came out and criticised the fans that booed. However, he also said how thankful he is to Millwall and how, Millwall gave him his opportunity when Arsenal knocked him back, when Gillingham knocks him back, so, in the youth days. I feel like if he wants to go, then of course don't stand in the way from him, I suppose, in that sense. But I think there's more. I don't think he's that kind of person that will just throw the towel in. I don't know if you disagree, Tony. What do you reckon?
Well, I've got to be honest, because I was at the QPR game. I was lucky enough to get in the ballot at the QPR game. And
so you were number 8 in?
No, I was in the B group. But,
B with a bit of A.
Yeah, B with a bit of A. Otherwise, I'd have been at the Derby game. But I was really disappointed with Marlon. I've got to be honest. We sit in the Docker stand, and every week he comes out. The players run over, clap us before the game, and he didn't do that. He deliberately ignored the fans. He didn't have any interaction with the fans whatsoever. There was a lot of call for support from him. A lot of people shouting out, "We're behind you, Marlon." Ignored it all. There was no thumbs up to people. And I think maybe, it might be raw, but I think he'd taken the wrong end of the stick in terms of what Millwall fans really, really think. I think he's listened to the media part of it rather than, actually talking to Millwall fans, because a lot of them would have told him, that they did tell him that they were fully behind him and fully behind the cause of what he was standing for. But he disappointed me that day, and I think that maybe it's because maybe he has cut us off. Maybe what Micky's saying might be true. I don't know. And footballing wise, he's an up and down player. Sometimes he looks really good, and sometimes he's a 50-50 player. Makes defensive mistakes, makes good tackles at the back occasionally. Going forward, he's far too indifferent. Runs well with the ball, but what he does at the end of it is generally useless. So I personally think I would bring Danny McNamara in, and regardless of whatever went on with Marlon, I'd start Danny McNamara over Marlon anyway. So that's where I stand on it.
Be interesting with the competition there, and if Marlon does stay for a bit longer, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, Neil, what do you reckon about obviously Romeo potentially leaving, and obviously the prospects of McNamara, and also who you'd look for in the January window?
I think you've got to be careful with the Marlon situation. I think you can't be accused of forcing him out the club, and that is the way this could come across because of everything that's gone on. He ain't worth £2 million. If somebody
you'd be surprised in these days.
Somebody wants to pay £2 million, I'll pay for the Uber.
Scott Malone went to look at Scott Malone. He went to Fulham he left Cardiff for I think £1 million. So I mean, if you look at Scott Malone,
to be honest, Marlon Romeo is a decent player, but as Tony said, we've all seen he's got no end product. He gets the ball, he bombs up there, he gets in a position, then it ends up in the stand.
Yeah, but could he play in the Prem for a lower team in the Prem?
No chance in hell.
No way.
There's more chance of you playing in the Premier League. Yeah, there really is. And as for other signings, I'll be controversial here. I'd send back Zohor because, we've had 3 games out of him. Yeah. So he started his first game, and he's got injured. He's been out ever since. Yeah. What's not to say that he isn't going to get injured again, and then we're lumbered with his wages?
I'm not sure how long his loan is.
I think it runs out in the middle of January.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when it does run out. So, but if I suppose maybe the next couple of games could be in a shop window for us.
Yeah, but I think the reason he
has to prove himself in those.
Yeah.
And he has to prove his long-term fitness. He isn't a player that stays fit for long.
Yeah, but he's worth a fortune. So the reason he came to us on loan was hope that he was going to play and come on fire. So come January, they can then say, look, he's been in the shop window, and hopefully offload him for a good percentage of what they paid for him. But where the fact he got injured, he's not going to do. So potentially we might get him for the end of the season, and then they'll put him in the summer.
Or his injury record is piss poor.
But Bart's got a bad knee, and Bennett's made of glass.
Yeah, but we need players that are going to play games. Yeah, we ain't going to go down because I don't think the bottom 2 will certainly stay as they are now. And I think Rotherham might probably fill the other spot. There'll be 2 or 3 clubs, but we ain't going to be one of them. I think that we need to look at our striking options. Interestingly, despite the fact that the so-called Twitter journalists are saying that Parrott's going to be recalled.
It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Gary Rowett has not addressed it in 2 or 3 media things that I've read in the South London Press and the Southwark News. So I think we only need another striker if Zaha or whatever he's called goes back. Yeah. And then we might need another.
I mean, I'm not being funny. You're a journo, Neil, right? If Parrott was going to come back, right? If Parrott was leaving, Tottenham press office would have given confirmation to say at the end, end of December, he would have done it. We'd be going back. There'd be something official, either a denial or confirmation from Spurs, and there isn't.
If there's a recall clause in the contract for a start. Yeah, we don't know what the terms of the contract are. Is it somebody putting 2 and 2 together? You don't know. Yeah?
You don't. I mean, I reckon in his contract it probably says if he's fit. Yeah, I reckon in his contract it says if he's fit he has to play every game. Which but you don't know whether or not he ain't playing because he could have COVID. He could be round players. He's having to stay, clean or whatever. So you don't know. But I think if there'd be more notification if he's going back rather than a couple of 2 bob. Teenage journalists on Twitter making up stuff.
I quite agree with you. I quite agree. I think we need another midfielder. We definitely need Malumbi back. Yeah, probably. Yeah, I quite agree with Kai, actually. I think we need a wide player. We don't need an awful lot, to be quite honest. Well, we need to get Scalak out the club because he's a wage thief. Yeah, but let's be honest about it, yeah? He can fuck off back to Czechoslovakia tomorrow, and I don't give a fuck because all he's done is take the piss since day one that he walked into this club, picking up 18, 20 grand a week or whatever it is.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, or whatever it is, yeah.
If it's 800 to a grand, it's still too much.
Yeah. Exactly.
Allegedly.
It's a disastrous fucking signing. Yeah. And but let's just get rid of him because he could drive his fucking Ferrari or his Porsche into the fucking training ground every day.
Tune in next week for another edition of the Salak Fan Club.
Yeah, but he runs around for 2 or 3 hours, then gets back in his Porsche or his Ferrari and fucks off to wherever he's living. And he's getting paid for that. Mate. No, let's not get on that one.
Right. Yeah. I think we're coming towards a natural ending to this show. I think we've covered 2020 as a whole. I'm going to put you guys on the spot and I'm going to come to Kai first on this one. Who's your player of 2020? I feel like we might all have similar answers, but we could be wrong.
For me, it has to probably be one of either Bart or Jed's one of them ones that's always up there, isn't he? But for me, it probably has to be Bart. I think Bart's been tremendous since he signed. Obviously, when he signed, he was going to play second choice, wasn't he, to Frank Fielding until Frank Fielding got injured. And yeah, that's kind of been a blessing in disguise ever since, hasn't it?
Imagine how that would have worked out if Fielding stayed in goal. Cool. You never know, do you? I mean, the talk was obviously Bilkowski's knee was a bit dodgy. That's why we signed him alone, wasn't it? But yeah, I think I have to agree with Bilkowski as well. I think it says a lot about Millwall. We've always took a lot of pride towards defenders. I think Jake Cooper needs to get a notable mention as well. I know you might not say he's a 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 most weeks, but the consistency levels he gets to keep playing week in, week out, and says a lot about him, obviously missing that one game, but back in the side after dislocating shoulder. I think maybe Cooper might almost edge it, but I think Bilkowski is a good mention. What about yourself, Tony?
For me, it's between... I like a top 3. I think Bartosz has been probably the standout player. However, this season more than last, he's had a few errors. He saved us in a few games and also cost us in a few games as well. So he probably wouldn't be my player of the season just because of that. He was my player of the season last year by a country mile because he only made one mistake that I could remember where he tried to clear the ball and didn't. He got caught in possession. This year he's made a couple of saving errors, which I didn't think he would have done. I think that obviously offensively wise, Jed Wallace is one of the best players in the league, creates so many opportunities, scores worldies every now and again. 10 goals, 10 assists for last season, continued it well this year. You know, he's a dangerous player, and we look. You know, the reason he plays every single week is because we have no one else in the team that can do what he does. And I know it sounds funny because I was going to say a top three, but Hutchinson and Cooper, you know, when they play together, are such a good centre-back pairing. They deal with anything that goes into the box, and they both complement each other really well, because Cooper covers so often for Hutch, because Hutch is the best player, one of the best players in the league at intercepting the ball. But if you're going to go and intercept the ball, occasionally you're not going to get it. So in that instance, you need someone to cover behind. And Cooper, they read each other's game really well. And I think I'll give it as one, but Cooper and Hutchinson as a one player are a superb partnership that I think are underestimated by a lot of Millwall fans, to be fair. Not enough people talk about how good they are. We haven't had a partnership this good for a long time. But it's weird because we play a back three. But when them two are together, they look fantastic.
I have to agree. I think, you know, it's true. Like, the pair of them are probably, I think, standout. When you put the two of them together in the division and they're playing together, you're right. I think the pair of them as a combination is one of the best in the league. I would ask Mickey, but he's going to say Ryan Woods is his player of 2020 anyway. So we'll go on to Neil and see what he's going to say instead.
I'm going to say Murray Wallace.
Okay.
Week in, week out, is a steady Millwall performer. Yeah, what you see is what you get from Murray Wallace. He came in, he was a fucking disaster. We thought to ourselves, what have we signed here? But every week he plays, or every time he plays, he just gives everything, doesn't he?
It's a carbon copy of Andy Frampton and his time at Millwall. It's a carbon copy.
As we've said in the past. Okay, it's easy to say Bart because he was so good last season. It's so easy to say Jake Cooper because he made Lee Bowyer cry on national TV. Yeah. But to be honest, Murray Wallace is what you want from a Millwall player. He's effort. He isn't spectacular. There's no frills about him, is there? But every single week, he tries his hardest, and that's all you can ask for from a Millwall player.
Come on in, Ryan Woods lover.
I agree. Ryan Woods, no, I'm not. No, Ryan Woods is what it is. Is 2020. We're going into 2021 now, and no, I the most underrated player has to be Murray Wallace. As such, you know what just does his job, but you've got to give Cooper some kudos for the amount of games he played. What was that, 156 games or something on the bounce? And then he dislocates his shoulder, pops it back in, and then carries on, takes a couple of painkillers, and then carries on for that game, then misses a game. But
he's real war, isn't he?
He is real war. But the thing is as well is that you've got to give Bart something there as well, because without Bart behind those sticks, mate, we could be proper in trouble this year. I know he's had mistakes, and I know he's cost us a couple of goals, but he when you need him, he can pull off some fucking miracle saves. So, you know, I'd probably go with Jake, because I know a few people won a few quid with Jake when he scores goals and stuff. You know, he's always a good 10-1 or above, sometimes, you know, close to the 20, and he can win you a few quid. So I would probably go with Jake, only because he's shown himself to be real wall, playing with a dislocated shoulder, taking 2 paracetamol and carrying on. I'll go with Jake.
I think we've covered all of 2020 in its fine fortunes. Does anyone want to put anything else to the groups before we fly off? I think we've covered 2020 as a whole. We all feel that 2021 could be a good year, I think, but a lot of it will depend on the January window, and I think that's a fair thing to say. Neil, you got anything you want to add?
Well, yeah, we always live in hope. We're Millwall fans, aren't we? And we love the club, and we just want to get back down the den. You want that miserable fucking feeling that you get when you're walking out after some tin pot northern shithole has just fucking scored in the last minute to turn us over 1-0 after the referees turned down 4 clear-cut penalties. And Murray Wallace has 2-footed somebody fucking throat eye to be sent off, and you're claiming that it shouldn't have happened. I just want to be fucking depressed again watching Millwall and coming out of and coming out of the cathedral of football after fucking finally meeting up with you and Mickey and fucking taking the piss out of us.
I agree. I think 2020 has been a bitch of a year. I think we've lost, since the last time we played at Nottingham Forest, when we've had the last lot of fans in properly, to now. I think we've unfortunately lost a lot of Lions fans, sadly, through illness, through COVID, whatever it is. But unfortunately, we've lost a good few Millwall fans this year, and I think rest in peace to all those Lions that are sadly passed. And I think the sooner we can get this out of the way and move forward and start living properly again and enjoying watching live football and calling people a cunt, I think the world will become a better place, because with no football, sitting on Twitter seriously affects our own mental health in more ways than one. It's fucking hilarious watching these wokes break down over stuff, but on the same level, it's tiresome trying to keep up with all these lefty stuff and all that lot. So it's quite comical.
I just want that buzz of walking out onto the stand, and seeing the game, seeing my heart out on a Northern away day, having 4 cans in the morning with my McDonald's breakfast on the train up. You know what I mean? It's just the stuff like I miss the most. I'm not going to lie, having crack with friends on the train. But, sooner rather than later, hopefully we'll get back to that.
I miss going down to buy a beer and missing fucking 25 minutes of the second half.
Well, and then going in the bogs and getting smoked out. When you go for a piss, you can't fucking breathe in the East.
Allegedly.
Because the bloody... because everyone's been smoking in there, and it's like, I don't know. Yeah, but it's just choking. I miss that.
So we've got 2 hours of goodness today, and I really do appreciate Kai from Millfan TV. Thanks for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much for having me.
And likewise to Tony from The Drive Home with Zach and Tony. Thanks, mate, for coming on. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Omer. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, and obviously, 2021 is going to be a new year for us. Hopefully, we can have lots of positive things to talk about of Millwall, and we'll be back very soon. Thanks for listening, guys.
$15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Is that Shakespeare?
Nope, it's Geico.
Yeah, that's Shakespeare from one of his unpublished works. Oh, it be not for awakening. Nay, giveth thou the berries. For 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Nope, it's from Geico, because they help save people money.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but Geico got it from Shakespeare.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.